It should be recording. Yes. Okay,
Yes.
go ahead. If you want to share your screen.
Yes. Okay. Okay, I guess you should see it now.
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So José, please.
Okay. So hello everyone. I hope you had an amazing Easter with a lot of rest and a lot of chocolate. I'm José Cunha, and I'm here today with João Mourinho to present to you guys the exchanging product data across the value chain, a practical approach for this workshop. So for today's meeting agenda, if you can skip it, João.
Yeah.
Okay. For today's meeting agenda, we are going to talk about the motivation for this this workshop. What were the problems that we encountered, and the context of the workshop, and the main objectives of this session. We are going to present you a proposed approach, the foundation for an effective approach, and the approach itself. And then João will talk about with a practical example to everyone can understand it better. And finally, we are going to broadening the discussion to the other sectors. So starting with the motivation, let's talk about what is DPP. So DPP is a structured collection of product-related data across the product lifecycle. It's used to instrument to create transparency and foster circularity proposed by the European Commission. Group and share product information across the entire value chain and product lifecycle, like example, material extraction, production, recycling, usage, assembly, etc. And the main objectives of DPP is to allow consumers and businesses to make informed choices and to drive sustainability. Sure thing, this make a fantastic headline and press releases. We have encountered some problems with the DPP definition. The first problem that we encountered was the collection. If we look to definition of collection in dictionary, it says that it is a group of the action of or process of collecting someone or something, or a group of things or people. Okay, we need to know what we have to collect, and we need to collect the collection of data first. The next problem that we encounter is circularity. Circularity can be defined as infinity, and all ends with beginnings. So this sounds like a big challenge. The next problem that we identified was sharing. We need to know what can we give and what can take of information. And the last problem is value chain. We know that value chain is so complex and rapidly evolving. And for you to know, an average car has 30,000 parts. That is a massive number of parts. So we have to collect the product-related data, and we have to share it with other partners in circular and complex value chains. So we need to know what can we collect it and how can we collect it. We have to share it, so we need to know how can we share it in circular and complex. So we need to define or deal with infinity and deal with complexity, and at least value chains. We need to do it so and to not cause loss of value for the company and do it cheaply. We may think that we have still a bit of time to tackle these challenges because there is no DPP policy enacted yet, no standardized format, no official data exchange protocols or stakeholder consensus yet. And we have not much time to think about this because just 3 years from now, the EU expects to cover the first groups with specific DPP regulations coming into effect. The time is essence when considering DPP implementation because it will be a rush to implement DPPs once the legislation is enacted, because not many companies are prepared for it. and the market dynamics may outplay your company. The EU companies, just as I said, are not prepared for it. There's a lack of awareness, not much digitalization, and the processes are very complex. The implementation of TPPs is not a straightforward process, so it needs awareness because we need to understand what is at stake. It needs data, heavy on digitalization to be efficient. Okay, and it needs structured and mature processes, and it needs involvement of the other partners along the value chain, with collaborations from suppliers to clients, etc. To give you a context, SMEs are 99.8% of the companies in Europe, and 56% can generate value. The employment, they represent 50% of the workforce, and the value of 35.3% of the total. SMEs can have difficulty in investing with lack of resources and lack of required skills in order to implement TPP. And the supply chains are very complex, as you can see in the image on the right side. They can be highly distributed with global companies, and sometimes they are very opaque. For these sessions, as Sistrade, we are shop floor management. We work with ERPs, mesh systems, and we know about concrete implementations. And today we are not going to talk about policy and regulatory affairs. That's not today's topic. We will discuss in operational terms what it takes to implement TPPs, the preparation of implementation, internal or external value chains implications, and also we're going to broadening the approach to the other sectors. So, talking about a proposed approach, we have 4 principles for an effective approach, let's say. The first one is to use established standards because they are well known in the market and they are better than using new standards. The information should be transparent, as you might know, and the proposed approaches should be open-based and easy to implement in order to be cost-effective and not to destroy value to the company. So what do you need? We need to implement DPP at a concrete level, and why? There is the need to explore operational solutions at a practical level, and how we need to adapt external processes and the changes need to start internally because data is the key for the exchanging information. So at internal changes, we need to know what data do we need to gather and where can we get it from the material, ERP, from mesh systems. We also need to know what data can we get from process modeling, resource consumption modeling, and how to acquire that data and where can we aggregate it to make it available for the next phase. Talking about external changes, the information needs to flow among partners who integrate other products and materials. The communication and interoperability is the key in order to be efficient. We in Sistrade, our lingua franca, which means all stakeholders can read and can see and structure about it, is IPC 257X. It's a product definition standard for describing the product at a BOM level. And what is IPC 257X? It's a standard, as I said before, in XML format that is used to describe bill of materials, approved manufacturer list, technical drawings, engineering change requests, engineering change orders, and deviations. And why do we choose IPC 257X? It was born in electronics industry, and it's long used to tight integration and information share, and it's BOM bounded. It's ideal to change product data. So we have identified some shortcomings of our standard. It doesn't include sustainability information, such as carbon footprint, recyclability, repairs and reuses, assembly instructions, and product usage info. There is not security mechanisms, no intellectual property rights management, no CAD or drawing specifications, and many more. But within the Sistrade, we aim to propose an update for this standard to solve these issues. So go Sistrade Power.
Okay, thank you, Jose, for this first part of the presentation. But I would like to invite everyone to follow a practical example, and I believe that is nothing more practical that something that everyone has at hand. For example, your smartphone. Everyone has a smartphone there, so let's think a little bit on the phone, on your phone's life cycle. So it all begins on the raw material extraction, then the individual component manufacture, then the assembly, then, for example, the use, which is not here, but I would say that it's outside of the scope of our workshop here. And then I would say that at the end it can be recycled, refurbished, repurposed, whatever you can do with it to keep the value as much as possible. So let's start at the first phase, the raw material extraction. We have here two important challenges. The first challenge is scarcity and costs. So we know that a single can contain a great number of materials. Some of them are critical raw materials. They are increasingly scarce worldwide. Sure, the European Union and Europe, in a broader sense, does not have them in big quantities. So that means that we depend on others. And of course, they have an environmental cost, their extraction. The second challenge is the hazardousness. So some raw materials, for example, the neodymium and cerium that are typically used in microphones and loudspeakers, are complicated and dangerous to extract and process. And we have also an increasing pressure to incorporate secondary raw materials. And we feel that DPP should help you to spot greenwashing. So we can see that we have lots of components and some of rare materials here in our phones. If we go to the individual component manufacture, we have three main challenges. One is process complexity, other is material diversity, and the other one is the two together. So it's diversity and complexity. So in the process complexity, each of the components of our smartphones goes through a lot of different processes, from injection molding, soldering, cutting, the burn-in testing of the chips, screwing. So there are a lot of complex processes. Regarding the diversity of materials, we know that they include from 30 to 62 materials, and some of them already include secondary raw materials. So this means that we probably have half of the periodic table in our smartphone. Then we have diversity and complexity together. So parts are provided by lots of different manufacturers. We know that the displays come from Samsung, LG, whatever, and we know that there are a bunch of manufacturers involved in these processes. Then the assembly phase. We have two main challenges here: logistics and traceability. So we have to gather components that come from all over the world. We need to gather information of each of the components. We have to know the dimensions, the materials. They have to be assembled. We have to know how everything will fit together. So the engineering information is also important. And the second challenge is complexity. So we are talking about a smartphone that has more than 300 parts, but this is, I would say, not the most complicated of our problems. If we are talking about the car, Toyota did a study in the 90s that they found that their cars have more than 30 100,000 components. And if we are talking about airplanes, the former CEO of Boeing said that an airplane had about a commercial airplane, that the ones that we fly on in has about 5 million parts. So this is a huge challenge. And the assembly lines are very complex. So again, back to our example of our smartphones. So they go through a set of assembly process, mounting cameras, screwing, electric testing. And for example, just to assemble one iPhone, you need 400 assembly steps. So this is a complicated problem. Then if we go to, for example, the recycling, we have 3 challenges. We have diversity. So imagine what are more than 300 parts times 62 different materials times the infinite number of different smartphone models that are in the market today. So this is a huge challenge. And the second challenge is knowledge. We need to know what materials are in each part, what is their quantities, how we can disassemble it efficiently, and how we can recover the materials effectively. I mean, with the highest degree of purity, let's say. And of course, we have also the challenge of greenwashing, with some companies claiming for marketing purposes that they use a lot of more recycled materials than reality they use. But okay, let's talk about problems. I have a teacher who said, "I don't embrace problems, I embrace solutions." So let's go down to the solutions and what we propose in practical terms. Okay, let's get this done. Okay, so the first stage, raw material extraction. So at this phase, we have to remember that we don't have a product yet. We have raw materials, we have differentiated materials, for example, plastic pellets that will be molded into the smartphone cases, or another type of product, or the enclosure of chips. So we don't have a product yet. So a product standard like the one we propose, such as the IPC 257X, it's not adequate at this phase, so we will skip it for the next phase. But we have something now. We have the technical sheets that are delivered with the raw materials. We have chemical composition, handling warnings, and so on. But okay, this is something, but it's not good enough. Far from being good enough to include it in DPP. So our first task is to complement the info that we have already with sustainability info and possibly other information. So for example, this is a technical data sheet from a material. We have to include the energy required for the extraction and processing, the waste generated, the composition of that waste, the CO2 generated in the extraction and processing, the percentage of incorporation of secondary raw materials, for example, and the water used, and so on. We have lots of missing information that we would like to have in our DPP. So imagine that we are in a real raw material extraction site like this one. So there are many things that we have to have in account, and some of them are quite simple. For example, we have to account for vehicle fuel and its composition and emissions, the energy for processing and extraction, the waste accounting. We have to put sensors on the CO2 chimneys, for example, to know how much CO2 are we producing, what is the percentage of incorporation of secondary raw materials if we are doing it, how much water and other type of resources are we consuming. So we have to have all of that in account. On top of that, we have to implement an IoT platform and an information system. Why? Because if we are increasing the information that we are acquiring, we have to resort to automated means. So this should be a standard by now, but you would be surprised by the number, by the state of the average, I would say the average manufacturing SME in Europe. So they are still transitioning to Industry 4.0, not speaking about Industry 5.0. So we have to automate these processes to make them efficient and not to put a burden that will decrease the value creation, which is not our objective here. And the second task is to make it flow. We have to make that information flow. So manual reading and manual information insertion is not viable anymore from the part of component manufacturers. So we have three options. Or we agree on a standard format for raw material technical data sheet. I would say to call it of an enhanced technical data sheet that can include that information. Or we can negotiate in a one-to-one base a simple data exchange format and mechanism, for example, an ad hoc JSON or a mechanism such as an API. Or for the raw material providers that don't have that possibility, we can use an AI driven document management system that can extract all the information from the let's say paper specification technical data sheets from the raw materials. Moving to the next stage, to component manufacturing. So here we start having products. It can be semi-finished products or complete products, but we have products. As soon as we have a product, we can already use, let's say, our new version of an IPC 257X to aggregate the material process and product information, and then we can complement it with another standards, for example, the ISO step to convey engineering information as needed, the CAD drawings and technical information, but would say that the bill of materials is the core. Of course, this is a great challenge for the European SMEs because it is heavy on data and digitalization. And this is also a great challenge for value chains because partners need to collaborate while competing. And if we will describe the process, so at each of the manufacturing process, we have to monitor the material inputs and aggregate its enhanced technical data sheet information, so the information coming from the raw materials. We have to monitor process-specific data from ERP, from MES, and from IoT systems, which acquire, for example, energy consumption, the time, the waste that is produced. We can add the design information if it's pertinent from CAD or step formats, and then we will add all that information to the IPC 257X, which is bomb bounded, so it will be bounded to that specific part, and that IPC information will be shipped with the component. And then if we have, for example, I told previously that an iPhone requires 400 assembly steps, and each of the components has also goes through several processes. So in each process, we have to get all that data from IoT, from MES, from ERP, and so that at the end of the manufacturing of the individual component, we can ship all that information, all that aggregated information about the process, about the product, composition, materials, energy, waste with the product. So that in the assembly phase, and we know that our mobile phones have a lot of parts. I have already spoken about that previously. So from the battery, we have a file, an IPC file that accompany the battery, or that we can obtain it from a central platform. Then we can merge it with the screen manufacturer and with the CPU manufacturer IPC information. Then with our Sistrade thread service, we can aggregate it and we can ship it with the final product as the assembly operations are made. So at the end, you can, if the DPP, the final legislation, says that we have to follow a standard, we can include the DPP information as the IPC as an attachment, the DPP file as an attachment, or even why not? Maybe we can use the IPC file as the main component of the DPP. The thing is that with the IPC we can have all that information shipped with the final product that the user can analyze the, let's say, the main things, how much CO2 this smartphone produce it in its manufacturing, or what are the materials, if the materials are secondary raw materials or not. And then for the, I would say, not really the end of life, because we are talking about the loop, but if we go to the recycle or repurpose, so as soon as a smartphone reaches the recycler, the recycler would like to know more about the smartphone. We want to know how many components, how the components are organized, how we can disassemble them, how we can, what are the materials, the materials that we can extract from each of the parts, and all of that information is in a IPC, in an IPC file that comes with the smartphone. So we can feed that information to our service, and our service shows you what are the parts, when they were produced, all the history of the part, the BOM, the materials, if it's 80% lithium or whatever from the battery, what is the unique ID, what are the disassemble instructions, the recycle instructions, repair instructions, the CO2 yield, the dimensions, energy required, and so on. That means that we can have a lot of information that we can retrieve automatically from this file. Okay, so I was talking a lot, and I guess it's time to also open the discussion to our partners here. I would like to challenge you. I would like to know if you are, how many tech providers and how many researchers do we have here? So please, if you are a tech provider, please raise your hand virtually. Okay. Okay, at least we have one tech provider.
Joao, can you state the definition of a tech provider and a researcher?
Yeah. Tech provider. Yeah, thank you. Thank you
I'm
for that
confused
question.
which one I am.
It's okay. It's important. So, the tech provider, it's, I would say, that is a for-profit company that provides technology to manufacturers. This is my definition, not necessarily the scientific definition, but for the purposes of this meeting, let's say that it's the definition that I propose. So if you are a company and you are providing technology in the shape of software, hardware to manufacturers, please raise your hand. Okay, we should raise our hand too, because we are a company that provides software. So at least. Okay, yeah, thank you, Jose. So now I would like to know who are the researchers here, or who are connected to research institutions. Please, you can raise your hand.
Okay, I think we're on 9 there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So what about, do we have here anyone from the industry? Some manufacturer? Please raise your hand. Okay, great. Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I will challenge you to, you can click actually in the screen, you can click in that link. please. It should open a screen with something, please. Let's start with the tech providers. I will cheat my own our own presentation. So this is for everyone, not only for tech providers, because I think the questions can really be broadened to all the audience that we have here. So please feel free. So sorry, is there here?
There's
you have a cap of 30 participants, I think.
Okay. Well, this is a shame, but at least
I can exit, and I think probably one or two of the DSS gang can probably exit, so
yes,
you can have a few spaces.
Actually, this was good because we were expecting about 30 people, so this is good because it's a indicator that the workshop is well attended. The attendance is good, so at least I will try to share also my screen so that even the people that can't vote, at least they can accompany what's happening. So just
I've ducked out so someone can hopefully refresh and maybe take in my place, but if not, yeah, I think that's a good idea if you can share the questions so people who can't vote can do it.
Yeah, of course,
old school
of course.
wise.
Yeah. Okay. So I was expecting, but okay, let me share my screen so I can possibly. Okay. So this is okay. So the first question is, what are you doing to help your manufacturing customers in the implementation of DPP? So if you don't have customers, take this question as, what are you doing to help manufacturing in the implementation of DPPs? Please cast your answers. Yeah. Okay. We have some time for answering. Don't rush. You can.
I just get a gauge of how many people haven't. I'm guessing we have 30 spaces, so maybe there's 15 people who haven't been able to log in, but I think there's 3 or 4 of us who have space. So maybe only about 10 people can't be in, I think.
Yes.
So
yes.
if anyone's not in, maybe you can vote in the chat instead. We're innovative people. Come on, we can find ways around this. So if you aren't in the AHA slides option, if you want to vote in the chat, then we will make a note of your vote in the chat as well.
Yes, you can vote in the chat also. So okay, so it seems that the majority of people, if we can trust the sample that we have here, which is probably not very significant, are doing pilot projects. So I believe that, and Rembrandt is here, so the importance of doing pilot projects is a lot, because I guess it will allows us to get sensitivity to the most important issues. Maybe Rembrandt, you want to say something about the importance of doing pilot projects such as Sistrade, which let's say low TRLs in this aspect?
Yeah, I think as always, the key aspect here is to really you have to be creative, because there's no definitions, as you mentioned, or standardized configurations or approaches. So the pilot projects really help to figure out what a potential working model is, and how to implement how to implement it, and then to make the learnings and the lessons of what worked and what is also helpful. What especially in the circular context, what information is helpful to exchange, in what format, for what purpose. And that's not so obvious, because in your presentation, Joao, this looked like it's a piece of cake.
No, far from
a little bit, in terms of the information flows in your animations, and also Jose. But this is okay. There's a lot of barriers and challenges. So, and the only way to learn this is doing a real projects in a pilot format to understand how to overcome these barriers and how to simplify the formats to make it workable.
Yes, exactly. And from the chat answers also, Christina is already working in requirement analysis at a very preliminary stage, I believe. So would you like to to talk a little bit of that work being done?
Thank you, Hal. Hello, good afternoon to everybody. My name is Cristina Di Maria. I'm a research project manager from UNI, the Italian standardization body. The reason why I have voted for requirements analysis, it's because it was most fitting the activities we are doing as a standardization body. At European level, it has been settled a working group dedicated to supporting the European Commission for the future standardization mandate on the digital product passport, so which will be the standards that the European Commission will require for the digital product passport, and especially in terms of identifiers and requirements for identifiers. And we are participating to this working group, which has just been settled a couple of months ago, and it will most probably start its activities in 1 month or something. We are participating to certain projects in order to understand from the market, also with a bottom-up approach, what the manufacturers, what the industries and the other actors of the value chain would need on this side, and hopefully we will report these experiences in that working group.
Yes, that is actually quite a very important work, and as Rembrandt was said, well, in the presentations and the PowerPoints, this all seems very animated and working and so on, but there is certainly a lot of challenges, of specific challenges in this in the implementation of DPPs and this data exchange. And that takes us to the second question that I would like to ask your votes to. So is what specific challenges do you foresee in implementing the DPPs in, let's say, the customer segments you serve, or at least in manufacturing in general? Please remember, you can also type in the chat the challenges. So yeah, let's provide some time for it. Please feel free to yes. So some answers appearing now. So data acquisition as a challenge. Time not structured yet. Okay, this is all changing, which difficults our reading. So unable to share data, unwilling to share data. That is an important concern that we have here, because much of this approach means that the partners have to collaborate while competing, and these are contradictory topics that have to be managed. It's we mentioned that at the part of the presentation that by now for example, the IPC doesn't has any method of IP management, and that can be a problem that needs to be solved if we want the partners to value chain partners to share data. I am not thinking on a CPU manufacturer who is willing to share sensitive data about their designs and production with other partners downstream the value chain. Okay. So the interoperability, yes, complexity, and the supply chain approach. I don't know if any of the colleagues here want to elaborate on one of these answers that have probably cast. For example, I am curious about the supply chain approach, for example. I don't know if I can ask this, but if the person who but the supply chain approach here as a major challenge maybe wants to elaborate a little bit on this.
Yes. Good afternoon, Joao.
Good afternoon.
Ciro is speaking from SUPSI. I wrote supply chain approach since I think one of the major challenge in the application of digital product passport is to get an involvement of the whole supply chain in order to this work is related to the data sharing challenge. So it's related to the unwillingness of some of the actor of the supply chain to provide data or the complexity in provide this data. So yeah, this is what I mean with this input.
Yes, that is I totally agree. It's I would say that probably is one of the biggest challenges that we have here, and I don't know if anyone is working in with data spaces or industrial data spaces. Is anyone here working with data spaces? IDS?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Several
so
people,
Yes.
I think.
yeah, I bet. Okay, so I would like to ask one thing. In we have here also the interoperability. How can this interoperability fostered by the data spaces could be used to improve this supply chain approach that Ciro has mentioned? What is your view on that?
Well, I may respond. This is Cesar from Inestec.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Welcome.
the IDS is first of all an horizontal scheme or specification. So in principle, any data format, if we are speaking about data formats, can be supported. So the interoperability has to be seen first of all more in the context of how to exchange data in a secure and trustful way, obeying to the data sovereignty principles. Regarding the interoperability itself, data format, to be more concrete, the IDS has not a response apart from the possibility of proposing a vocabulary hub where all the ontology regarding the data format is somehow provided.
Yes. Great. Thank you. So it means that if I well understood, so data spaces can be let's say a solution, a platform for facilitating this collaboration and supply chain approach. That is good, and I believe that there is also a lot of ongoing work in the IDS, and we know also that the INESC is well versed in the data spaces area. Well, thank you. So I'd like to move to the next slide. So this is more tailored to research partners, which I believe that a lot of them are here too. So, but you know, this is to involve everyone, so feel free to answer. So the objective is that we have here different point of views from different perspectives. So what do you think are still the gaps in DPP implementation in terms of state of the art, let's say? Is there anything that remains unsolved, or it's just a matter of political willingness to put the regulation to enact the regulation and make the industry to implement it? What do you think? Let's wait some seconds so that we can see here some gaps. Again, feel free to answer in the chat. We have a close look on the chat, so it's a suitable mean to provide your answers to. Yes. Yes, Clara. So this is an answer that have 3 likes, so it is significant. Would you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I'm wondering what I started now. I don't have the access to the slides, so forgive me. But I think it was just an interesting point that was raised on a workshop I helped facilitate another week from a different work package, which was also saying, how do we check that data is credible, potentially also from the consumer end? So one of the conversations was about product usage, and someone said, well, wouldn't it be great if there was a way to check the data by using the products? So for example, the example was given, if you have a car, you know how many miles the car has done because of the clock, but could we have mileage on a washing machine or an electronics product to know how many hours it had been charged or how many rotations of a washing machine had been done? Because then you would have an understanding of the use and the life and the how a product had been used, because we can't necessarily trust a consumer to put that data in. And it was just an interesting question of, if you ask someone to say, is your product toxic, and someone says no, it isn't, how do we check that data is being kind of verified? If it comes from material sheets or bill of materials, I guess that's concrete information, but it's more maybe the consumer or the more qualitative data. How do we check that that's correct?
Yes, and if we are talking about, for example, used products, that we need to know that the life cycle of a product is much more complex than the one we focus here. We focus this more from a manufacturing perspective.
Yeah.
But the use can yield a lot of information. For example, how many times the mobile phone was charged, what is that information. Then we have here lots of challenges in terms of sharing the data, about the data rights, and that a lot of issues going on. So that is a very interesting domain to have more research and probably more regulation too. So checking the other answers, it says so not just specifying data requirements, but also the quality of data. Yes, it was the Varajan. So I guess that is a topic that we are already working in the Sistrade project. So Jose, we have also the analysis of the quality of data that it is on the IPC. We have an analyzer that checks the quality and the completeness of the data, and that also answers a little bit to the concern of Paulo Rosa about the unavailability of data. So if, for example, an IPC file has not a lot of data, the quality can't be very high. So the quality and the availability are somehow interrelated too. Yeah, and there is a very good point that Eniko raised, that is the interchangeability of data between different DPP systems. That is an important topic. Within Sistrade, we are doing a little bit of lower level work in that aspect. So we know that many manufacturing companies use different systems for managing the production, but somehow when they are assembling components and products that come from other manufacturers, there has to be a mechanism that allows to translate that information into their own production system, and then the output of that information system to, let's say, to the DPP, or to allow to do the DPP, for example, through the IPC file. We are working in a converter from that, but we know that this is just a drop in the ocean. So a lot more has to be done in that area to allow a bigger interoperability and data interchange between partners. Then if we go to Caroline, Heinz spoke about the issue of antitrust and competition, which manufacturers often mention as a challenge to access data. Caroline, I am from the our background is from the technology. If we are talking about antitrust, I would like, personally, this is a curiosity of mine. Can you explain a little bit more the question of antitrust and competition and how this can be solved? What are your suggestions?
Not sure that I have suggestions to offer at this time, but I don't know if you hear. Yeah. No. I think what we've realized is that there's still some mistrust when discussing with manufacturers as to the availability and the willingness to share data. So whether that's throughout the supply chain, or whether that's within a technological system. So I think the point here is more about how do we ensure that the access to certain data and information points is made in a way that it also ensures privacy, and that it also ensures that the right information is only shared with the right actors within the supply chain that actually need access to that information. Because otherwise I fear that there might be this issue of just not necessarily having confidence in the data that is being shared and wanting to share that data for reasons of antitrust and competition, of course, knowing that some of that data is very sensitive and can also have implications for competition reasons.
Yes. So create the conditions to enable the trust and the sharing of data. Yeah. Thank you. Good point. And Paulo Rosa has here an important topic, that how can you create a DPP if the greatest part of material related databases are not accessible? That is true, and I don't know if anyone wants to answer that question. I believe, in my personal opinion, that if the DPP legislation is enacted, that will have a ripple effect over the value chain. So starting first by the manufacturers and who sells the goods, because they have to have a DPP, and that will create an upstream pressure across the value chain that will eventually reach the raw material providers. And so this material related database, or at least each of the raw material providers has to provide that information, because it will be a requirement that the manufacturers will have to do. And I believe that the strongest driver would be obligation. So if DPP regulation is enacted, that will have a ripple and positive effect across the value chain upstream till the material providers. Okay, and as we are approaching the end of the session, I would just now put the final question to everyone. So what are the best ways of raising awareness of DPP implementation? We know from our experience with the industry that there is some many of them, they have heard that something is coming and something is being cooked around the DPPs, but they are not very aware of what it takes to do the DPP. What can be done? What can be done in scope of the project? For example, Sistrade, I believe this has been a great project and with a great communication that has been done through this project. But also outside the scope of Sistrade, what can be done to raise awareness about the DPP implementation? Please cast your answers. Okay, so we already have some answers. So from the voting system, we have involvement of suppliers. Yes. So the other way around, not upstream pressure, but downstream pressure. So if the suppliers can provide already, if we raise awareness on them to provide more information that allows DPP implementation, that would be a good start. Yes. Then we have the importance of the best practices to promote the best practices. Awareness raising campaigns, yes, I believe that would be also very interesting. Legislation, yes, for the law has a lot of strength here. The buyer demands data. Yes, exactly. So even the end consumer, if the end consumer starts by asking that data, I believe that would be also a good pressure because the consumer moves markets. And here from the chat, we have also working examples. No, so first, inform customers about the availability of data about their products. Yes, that is great. And working examples, so people can see how it will actually look, feel like. So that would be actually very interesting if customers had the experience of knowing the information about the product. I believe that they would be more exigent with the other products that they buy, and they would also request that. So that is a pretty good suggestion. Thank you, Rada. Then we have involve users because they know about it, if they can demand and apply it. Okay, so Cynthia, would you like to elaborate a little bit on how can we involve users?
Well, the best way is the one that Rada suggest. I'm not sure about it, but I think if we involve users, as you said, users move the market. So I think is a way, is a strategy to do it.
Yes. Actually, yeah. So we have. I would say that we have to devise new and creative ways of involving the users. So yeah, and another suggestion that users can be recyclers and repairers also, not just buyers. That is actually great, and we see even in the mobile domain some companies have started moving in that direction, providing parts and manuals so that users can service their own phones and replace the parts, and that is actually quite good. I would just like to thank you all, and I would say that just let me bring here just the last slide. I'd like to thank you all for these amazing opinions and amazing feedback. So it was very interesting, and if it wasn't the time being ended, and I know that many time has tight agendas, it was an amazing discussion that I would like to keep chatting and talking with you for, I would say, at least more an hour or something, but I'm sure that we'll have the chance to, in further workshops, to have this beautiful exchange of opinions. Yes, the slides will be shared. So we will, together with Rada, will provide the slides to everyone. So thank you for your attention. It was a pleasure to have you here in this great discussion. For me, it was personally, I learned a lot also from you, and I believe that Jose also did. So thank you, Rada. The floor is yours again.
No, I was just going to say thank you for amazing presentation. I learned a lot as well, and so we will be in touch. But thank you for your attendance today and your involvement. It's most appreciated. Take care. Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.